to VR skip. So VR skip is probably the most, almost definitely the most challenging thing for a beginner. And unfortunately, there's no real way around it. You need to learn VR skip. So the first bit is quite simple. We just need to activate a couple of cutscenes. So we're going to go through this door. All we're doing here is just direction change neutral. Nothing special at all. So just turning around, charge through the door. So the cutscene that we're trying to hit is on this line. So what we do to optimize our movement is neutral into it and then wrench swing backwards. Like that. And that just sets us up because we need to go back again afterwards. So we'll skip this cutscene, progress on, again, coming up, and we're going to do a turret clip on this wall. I think Kirpling explains turret clips quite well, at least these versions of turret clips. So this is when you have two turrets. So you on your first one, parallel to the wall, and press up twice, I generally do. And then for your second turret, he says about 5 degrees from the wall. I think that's about what I'm doing here. In my experience, you can be pretty much perpendicular to the wall as well. And that should clip you through. Again, like Kirpling says in his tutorial, if you don't get through straight away, give it a wrench swing. That should get you through as long as your setup was pretty reasonable. So now we're out of bounds. One thing to note about going out of bounds is the camera really hates it. It's going to freak out a little bit. And if you're not careful, you're going to end up walking back where you came from. So especially when you're first learning, take it really slowly going out of bounds, figure out where you are. And so the wall we've just clipped through is here. We want to go this way. But sometimes the camera won't be facing like this. So my advice is to go into first person mode, hold L1. That should help you kind of get your bearings a little bit. So we're going to walk on through and just drop down here. And here we're going to do a neutral long jump into a wrench swing SI, which sounds a little bit scarier than it really is. So you've got lots of space for this neutral long jump. We're going to be aiming for around this spot here. And that's the SI. Once we land, we just wrench swing to the left, and that will get us up. Hi, Future Chili. I realized I didn't explain what to do if you fall down here, because you will need a backup. So, for example, say you miss your SI or something. Oh, well, that also can happen. That's something that I could have mentioned in the video. So to avoid what happened there, you just want to aim your neutral long jump a little bit further left and make sure you are doing your wrench SI. But back to talk about the backups. Say you miss your SI, you fall down, you're bouncing on this lava. What you want to do is go down here. There's no collision here, and you can stand freely. And then we have two options. The safest option is to go back where we came from. Charge all the way to the end, jump, and the lava will knock you back out. And you can go again. Or you can go for the alternative backup. Say you fall down. Again, go through here. And we're going to SI up this wall, which is really annoying because the camera doesn't cooperate. In theory, the SI is really easy, but the camera is not very nice. So go right into the corner, and then we're just going to do the SIs. And I like to use the sound rather than any visuals because you'll see the camera is just a complete nightmare. And then you're out. So then we're just going to neutral charge over this gap. And this piece of wall is not solid. We're out of bounds right now, so not every single piece of collision is solid. You just want to aim and charge. You can walk up to it if you want, but just charge through this wall and keep charging, and you'll land in a cutscene. So that's the easier bit out the way. Now we need to do the actual VR skip. We're just going to charge over here, just simple jumps, nothing complicated. I'm going to come over to this first console, and we're going to be aiming to go up to this tank over here. So you can just get up there however you like, just double jump across. And then this is the first clip that isn't a double turret clip and won't follow Kirpling's guide. So this is probably the most lenient of all the VR clips. You can kind of just find your own setup for it. If we look at what I do. I make sure you're walking right into the corner. Hold L1. And then we're kind of aiming for a little bit of the circle to be visible on this lower surface. So I've gone to this position and I've tapped up a couple of times to see if we can see me actually do it. See, okay, yeah. So I'm here. This line is going at a sort of 45-degree angle-ish. Again, this clip is much less precise than some of the other VR clips, so don't worry too much. And then I'm going to tap up twice, I believe. There's one tap, there's a second tap, and then yeah, you can see this is lining up with a little bit of this circle on this darker area. That should be good. Throw a turret there, and it should clip you through. You might get stuck here. Just kind of hold it at up left angle and jump a bunch, and you should get through eventually. Right. Now we come to VR whip jump, which is probably the scariest whip jump as a beginner. Mostly because it's blind. You can't see where you're going. So when I was a beginner, I just learned to do this blind. You can just do it blind. You kind of want to go off at this sort of angle. Pretty much just hold left and you can get away with it. But this is a setup you can do. Look down in first person. Have it so that you're looking to go off a little bit to the right. So it's not parallel. This line is coming down at a, what is that, 10-degree angle or so. That should set you off in a pretty good direction. Right, so now we're going to do the whip jump itself. My biggest tip as a beginner for whip jumps is just line it up well first and then commit to the whip jump. Don't kind of half-ass your angle and then correct it, because you're probably going to mess up and do a side flip or whip in the wrong direction. So make sure you got a good line up first, and then make sure you're holding forward throughout the whole whip jump. And then normal stuff, make sure you're pressing X and R1 at the same time. And make sure you're timing your whip input well. So if you have a bad whip jump, this whip input will come out a bit later. So I think Kirpling mentioned it in the guide. There's two ways you can do it. You can either just mash circle, or you can time your circle. If you're mashing, make sure you're mashing pretty quickly. And that will make sure that this whip input actually comes out at the right time, because the longer you take to do this whip input, the more height you're losing as you're doing the whip, and as you're coming out of your charge. So that is quite important, and making sure you're actually cancelling it into a long jump with good timing as well. That stops you losing height as well. And just one more note on whip jumps that no one ever seems to mention, it's not that big a deal, is that you don't have to be in midair to do a whip jump. You can practice these on the ground. That saves you kind of every time you miss it, you die. You could just be in the Starship Phoenix main area. You can just do whip jumps on the ground there, or anywhere. Now, we're not quite done with this whip jump yet. We can't even see where we're going still. So what we have to do is time our glide well. So at the moment, we've just done a long jump, and the long jump is starting to finish. And if you watch my input display, so I start to glide not long after the long jump animation is finished. And this is important. You don't want to glide too late, otherwise you're going to lose all your height and you're not going to make it. And also, if you glide too early, you're going to kill your speed and you're not going to make it over there. So we start to glide just as we're starting to fall, just after the whip jump animation is finished. And we're going to glide and we're going to hold forward. And we should reach the VR area. And then you can latch onto this hypershot mode. The hypershot will equip automatically. And once you're close enough to it, and then you can just press circle. So this whip jump is tricky. There's no way around it. You've got to practice it a lot. And it's getting a good whip jump, and it's a good timing on your glide. So like I say, time the glide. I would maybe even do it a little bit earlier than I did in this recording if you're a complete beginner. When you see the long jump animation is finished, you can start gliding. But not too early, obviously, and then you're going to lose your speed. So around now, I would say, is when to start gliding, which, to be fair, is more or less what I've done. So then we get into VR. Actually, one more note on this whip jump. It's something I didn't do in this clip, but as you're doing the whip jump now, you could press triangle twice, and that'll switch you over to your turrets. And that will just make this menuing that we're going to do in a second a lot more straightforward. But I wouldn't worry about it too much if you're a complete beginner. So we're going to come through, and we need to have a very specific order. We need to have hyper shot, then we need to equip the whip, and then we need to equip our turrets. So the important thing to remember here is this hyper shot, we don't actually own the hyper shot. The game has given us the hyper shot because we've gone to VR training. But if you opened up your gadgets menu right now, the hyper shot would not be there. So you need to be very careful about how you're doing your menuing. If I was to equip the shot cannon right now, that would overwrite this hyper shot. And then you can't get it back unless you go and do VR skip again. So for the next 2 to 3 minutes that run, we need the hyper shot in our recent weapons, in our quick select. So you have to be a little bit more careful on your menuing than you would normally be. Right, okay, so now we're going to long jump across this gap. One thing to remember, the way the helipack work is it multiplies your current momentum. So if you do a long jump from a standing start, you'll get a really short long jump, and you actually will not be able to make this gap. So just make sure you're walking into the long jump and you press X and R1 at the same time, so you don't kill your speed. It's a weird way that they programmed the long jump in this game, the helipack long jump at least, but it's what allows most of the tech to work, is because it's multiplying your speed, or at least storing your speed. Okay. Then we're going to go on to our next clip. So there is a way, and you'll see quite a lot of people do a clip around here. I really don't like this clip, so it's not the one I'm going to teach you, but feel free to copy someone else's setup to do the clip. What we're going to do is we're going to go right in the corner over here. So just charge into the corner, go into first person mode, and this is again a single turret clip, not a double turret clip. So your method that you learn from Kirkling won't apply here. What you want to do is start around this angle and slowly inch left. And at some point, the camera will start to zoom in. There. This is what you want. And the further left you go, the more it will zoom in. Another way I like to line it up is if we go back, we look at this little notch in the XP bar. I like to use this for visual references quite a lot. You'll find that this notch lines up with this gap, this line between the dark surface and the light surface. That is like when you're spot on. This little setup here, this line through the notch, is how I like to line up these clips and do them quickly. So once you got this lined up, you're going to throw a turret. And this is going to put us right inside the wall. You can notice we are right next to a death plane all around here. If you clip too far left, that's going to push you into the death plane before you've had a chance to move, and you're just going to die. So if you place the turret too far left, you're just going to die. You place the turret too far right, you're not going to clip through. But as we placed it right where we are, we will keep going, and we'll be basically inside the wall. So then what we're going to do is turn to look to the left, switch to our hyper shot, and double jump away from the ground. This is fairly lenient once you got this bit. And you'll be able to latch onto a hyper shot that's a long way away in the distance. You can't even see it. This is fairly easy once you've got the clip. There's not much. It's not too difficult. All I'll say is when you're jumping out, make sure you're jumping at kind of this kind of angle, not this kind of angle. I think you could probably even get away with this angle. And you'll get onto the next node. Okay, this next clip is very similar principle, except it's against a wall instead of in a corner. So again, you can see I've lined up this notch with this line. And again, that's put us just inside the wall. And now you need to do probably the scariest bit of the whole VR section, which is a whip jump into a hyper shot grab. So we're going to switch over to our whip. And again, this is pretty lenient, but you just want to go whip kind of directly away from the wall. After we've done our whip jump, we need to press triangle once so that we switch onto the hyper shot. This is the kind of scary bit when you're a beginner because there's a lot to think about at once. But all we're going to do is switch to it and just press circle. And you'll latch onto this node that's right up here. Scary, but completely doable. The hard part is that you've already done the other whip jump. You've already done a couple of clips. So by this point, it's all resting on this. And if you die, you've got to do it all over again. So VR skip is tough. There's no two ways about it. But you can get confident at it. You can start doing it very quickly once you get used to it. You just got to kind of practice it a lot. And then we'll come up to this final door and we'll just do a regular 2-turret clip. There's nothing special about this one at all. So away from the wall, parallel to the wall. And you can see I even need to do a wrench swing there just to get through. And then that's VR skip done. So a lot to process, but practice it and it will be okay. So then just as a final thing, we're going to go out this door, neutral off to the right. And what I'm going to recommend is that you switch over to the hyper shot now before you get to Dax. That's just going to make the next bit a bit easier. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to fly off to Dax. One thing that I haven't actually mentioned yet is that these cutscenes can be skipped. I didn't know this for the first kind of month or so that I was running. You can mash any face button to skip these cutscenes. I like to just... you'll see I just press X and circle. And that allows me to skip them pretty quickly. Okay, and that is VR skip. So next we'll be going on to Dax.